Next up is Ed Edelson, who is a candidate for the 69th House District, and then Alan Fox, who is the candidate for the 131st House District. We'll speak to him.
Thank you very much,
The microphone,
Connie, and also obviously an extension to Rick and to Jeremy.
We have two.
No, I got one. You keep that. Well, unless you want to give it to somebody else.
To Ellen. She'll be next.
All right. So when visiting New York City last December with friends from Florida, we visited the St. Patrick's Cathedral. Now, I passed by that cathedral many times, and I even worked across the street at Saks Fifth Avenue at their ski shop for a few months, where I was the only person in the ski shop who had ever skied, which says something about Saks Fifth Avenue. But I had never been inside the massive cathedral. So while we were walking around, my mouth was wide open, admiring the architecture inside, and I came across an inscription from the late Cardinal O'Connor. I'm going to work on my... I think I got it now. So what it said, the inscription said is, "There is no love without justice." Now, being a child of the 60s, I grew up with the Beatles, and they told me all you need is love. But clearly, Cardinal O'Connor saw that there was more than just love. You need justice. And most of the religious messages I find inspiring and meaningful from various denominations speak about the importance of love. For example, in 1966, Martin Luther King addressed the General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association in a speech entitled, "Don't Sleep Through the Revolution." This went to something. And this is what he wrote. "I think it is necessary to see the meaning of love in higher terms. The Greek language has three words for love. One is the eros, another is the word phileo, and another is the word agape. I'm thinking not of eros or of friendship as expressed in phileo, but of agape, which is understanding, creative, redemptive goodwill for all men, an overflowing love which seeks nothing in return. When one rises to love on this level, he loves a person who does the evil deed while hating the deed." That's the end of the quote. But the truth of Cardinal O'Connor's motto and the way it put justice as a prerequisite for love hit me as being central to why I've been coming to Justice Southbury quite regularly for the last 4 years. Initially, like many of you, I came because of both the outrage over the humane treatment of George Floyd and to cheer on the younger people who were at the heart of that initial gathering. Like some of you, I assumed my days of protesting were in the past, and I was too old for this. But the more we began to put the pieces together of what was happening in our society, it became apparent that it was as important as ever to take a stand for justice. So what do I mean by justice? I have been quite fortunate in my life, although it has not always been without disappointment mixed in with successes. However, I had a loving and supportive family while growing up. I have a very caring wife and wonderful children and grandchildren. And I've had many opportunities come my way, and I realize that much of that is possible because of that support. Except for some experiences while volunteering in rural Kenya in 1969, I have never worried about where my next meal was going to come from or whether or not I had a place to sleep that night. That is all the more reason to give back to others, to make life more fair for everyone. As I am prone to say, life is not fair, life was never fair, but I must try each day to make life more fair for more people. Now, not everyone is born into a loving and supportive family. Not everyone is blessed with good health, and not everyone is born at a time of peace and prosperity where they live, such as in my life. It is one of the reasons I ran for first selectman of Southbury in 2011. In particular, it was because I saw that local leadership was not reaching out to all citizens in Southbury, but favoring only one group of people. Towns Hall and animosity towards Heritage Village and Region 15 were palpable at that time. Other important justice initiatives that I took on back then, I will tell you about as soon as I can turn the page. Soon after being in office, I was able to take steps to help enhance the Southbury Food Bank work to address food insecurity in our community. At that time, I should first say, at that time, the food bank was in the basement of a building, an abandoned building really, over at the Southbury Training School. It had no heat. I never was in it, but I was told extremely dingy, a lot of mold, or at least the smell of mold. But they were able to secure a lease just down the block here at a new facility that's at fall, but already they had problems with storage. So at that point, when I first became first selectman, I visited the Southbury Library and went in the basement, which is a huge basement because it's the footprint of the whole building. And as I would say, it was like your grandparents' attic. Everything they didn't know what to do with in town, they put in the basement. So it was a mess. There was no room for anything because it was just junk. So at my direction, the basement was cleared out and organized, and space made available for storage for the Southbury Food Bank, so that its operation could continue and have sufficient storage to continue at that new location. Prior to that, Town Hall had done nothing to ever help the food bank in its old dingy place at the Southbury Training School. I then took a radical step towards addressing the future of the Southbury Training School. Prior to my administration, the answer to questions about the school's future were, quote, "It's a state issue and there is no local rule." And unlike my predecessor, I asked to be placed on the Board of Trustees of the school to help develop plans for the future so that the needs of this very vulnerable group of people who stay there, people with severe disabilities, are addressed. Another was working with some great young activists. I launched a town-wide marketing program to move Southbury towards becoming a zero-waste community. We put recycling cans in all the town parks, and we took on other activities to move to address environmental justice in our world. Justice is also one of the reasons why I'm running this year for your representative to the General Assembly. So now I need to turn the page. As my fingers get colder, it gets harder for me to do. So at the top of my list is gun violence prevention. Regardless of your thoughts on how to interpret the Second Amendment, from my point of view, no right-thinking person can say that having the level of gun deaths in our state and country is something we should see as acceptable. How can anyone feel that it's just because of where you are born that your chances of being shot are so radically different? Another is reproductive rights and women's health. I have always been amazed at my conservative friends and colleagues who are for limited government and who believe, in the words of Ronald Reagan, the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." These same people fervently feel that we need laws and government action to restrict a woman's decision about her own health and think that's a good idea. I don't know how you can reconcile those two things. These are very personal decisions that should be left to the woman and her doctor. The idea that women are out there getting pregnant because what they really want in life is to have an abortion is ludicrous. And that they would actually want to wait to have an abortion until the last possible minute is not only a lie, but also shows a level of ignorance about people and pregnancy that is truly terrifying in Ronald Reagan's terms. Justice for our veterans is also very important to me. Our 20-plus year war in Iraq and Afghanistan did tremendous damage to so many. Young men and women who went into the military to serve our national interest are paying a huge debt with the mounting level of suicide, or the rate of suicide, homelessness, and of course suffering from things like PTSD. We have to do more to help these people at the state and federal level. As some of you might know, going back to when I was on the board of trustees of the Southbury Training School, I was able to get that board to recommend to the Department of Developmental Disabilities that they should consider using some of the property at the training school for research and treatment of brain disorders for everyone, but including and focused on military vets suffering from PTSD. That is an example of what I consider the proactive initiative. We need to see more of those coming from the General Assembly in Hartford. Another area is the education gap in Connecticut. To me, another example of a tremendous injustice. Connecticut has some of the best schools in the country, like our schools in Region 12 and Region 15, but also some of the worst. As someone who's an ardent believer in public education as the glue that holds our society together, I see this as an investment we must make. And although I think there's general agreement about this, how to make it happen in a way that where you were born and raised does not dictate the quality of your education is what we call in the public policy arena a wicked problem. There are no simple answers. I don't have a solution up my sleeve, but I sure want to see our communities represented at the negotiating table up in Hartford. Now, I have a couple of others here, but I'm chilly, and I have a feeling you don't want to hear too much more from me, and I'm almost getting too cold to speak. So I think I will try to wrap it up. Also, I get a look from Christine that says, wrap it up. So, I hope you see that I'm striving towards a more just world, or that striving towards a more just world is critical to my approach to life and to my reasons for running to be your next state representative. And I thank you for your attention in this freezing cold weather.